Hello, ghouls and ghoulies. Welcome to Scary and Bizarre Short Stories. I'm your host, Larry Lee Roten. This story is scary. I've always wondered if things like this could happen. Could a witch invoke a spell that would change one's life? Oh, goodness, I hope not. I hope you enjoy this story. It's called The Curse. The witch's house sat in the shadows, almost concealed by the thick overgrowth. Elizabeth stood on the stoop, breathed deeply, and knocked on the crooked door. "What do you want?" a raspy voice asked. "I need your help," Elizabeth replied. The door to the cottage opened, and Elizabeth stepped into the musty smelling house. Standing erect, she told the witch, "I need a potion to give me eternal life and everlasting beauty. Can you help me?" The old witch studied the woman. "That's costly, but yes, I can concoct such a potion." "I'll give you anything you want," Elizabeth said. The witch walked toward Elizabeth and stared into her face. "Anything?" she asked. The witch laughed. "I will make you a potion, but in return, I want your 10-year-old daughter, Chloe." Elizabeth was stunned, and her mind spun many thoughts, but her desire for long life and beauty denied her the strength to say no to the witch. "Yes," she said, "I'll give Chloe to you. Why do you want her?" The witch staggered toward an old chair. "I need a sacrifice for the blood moon." "But why?" Elizabeth asked. "Why my daughter?" "A yearly blood sacrifice keeps my magic very powerful. Even in death, my spirit would be potent. Intoxicating, one might say. Without the sacrifice, my magic would fail. Your Chloe is young and innocent. Her blood would be a great offering to the blood moon." 100 years later, Chloe sat quietly, watching her newly found parents sign the final paperwork for the adoption. Soon she would be leaving the orphanage and go to her new home. While listening to the director talk with Beth and Roland Combs, she curled her hair around her finger. An hour later, Chloe raced into the two-story house and counted the steps that led to the second floor. 17, she said aloud. She smiled as she walked into her bedroom. Her room was inviting, and as the sun's rays peered through the panes, the room came alive with the young girl's imagination. She was happy, and her new room was perfect, if only it could stay that way. However, as the nights passed, the room seemed to come alive with something dark and evil. At 3 a.m., the witching hour sent unnerving feelings and shadows moving about in Chloe's room. She felt like something was watching her, late at night, in the dark, while she slept. This wasn't frightening to Chloe, as she had felt this evil before. One might have discounted the sightings as shadows passing through the large windows, car headlights sending shadows jumping as the light passed through the trees, reflecting off the panes and dancing on the bedroom walls. However, Chloe knew differently. At breakfast, Chloe's mother said she had heard strange noises that night. She got up to investigate but didn't find anything. Her husband laughed and said it was probably just the old house settling, making creaking noises. Chloe sat listening, curling her hair around her finger. Late the following night, as the clock struck 3, Chloe awoke. Her bedroom door opened, and a dark figure stood in the threshold, staring at the young girl. Then the figure backed away from the door and disappeared into the darkness. The next morning, Chloe woke to a beautiful sunny day. The sun's beams had penetrated the window panes, sending sparkles of light cascading over everything. The birds chirped as they sang their songs. What could be wrong with a morning like this? She sat brushing her hair and looking into the mirror. She smiled as she curled her hair around her finger. "What a beautiful morning," she whispered. "If only every day could be like this." Chloe's mom was upset at breakfast. Late at night, Carla woke to a dark figure standing in her room. She tried to wake her husband, but to no avail. The dark figure stared at the couple's bed for several moments before walking out of the bedroom and disappearing into the darkness. Chloe sat listening to her mother's story. She curled her hair around her finger. "Chloe, did you hear or see anything unusual last night?" Carla asked. Chloe shook her head as she ate her cereal. "Not really." "Well," said Carla, "I certainly did." "Mother," Chloe said, "did Miss Elizabeth tell you anything about my family?" "A little. The orphanage director gave us a folder with some information." Carla laughed. "Your family has an odd history. There was an old letter in your things. How the orphanage kept up with it is a miracle. And it's the only connection to your family's past. By the way, your great-great-great-grandmother had a daughter named Chloe, too. I suppose that's how you came by your name." "What did the letter say?" Chloe asked. "It had a warning, to beware of the blood moon." "Is that all that was written?" Chloe asked. "No, it also warned of a curse bestowed on your great-great-great-grandmother and her daughter." "A curse?" Chloe asked. "Did they say what type of curse?" "Yes, Chloe. Supposedly, an old witch cursed your grandmother and her daughter. However, Chloe died before her 11th birthday, and her mother seemed to have vanished without a trace. No one knows where she went." Carla patted Chloe on the hand. "I'll tell you Elizabeth's story. Before you were born, your great-great-great-grandmother made a pact with an evil witch. That pact was made using a young girl in your family. The witch gave your great-great-great-grandmother a potion to make her beautiful and grant her long life." Carla paused and added, "extremely long life. In return, your grandmother gave the witch her 10-year-old daughter, Chloe." Chloe sat listening to Carla's story. She curled her hair around her finger. Her mother continued, "However, as dreadful as this sounds, that should have ended the business with the wicked witch. But something else took place. Your grandmother reported her child as stolen and told the police that she had seen the witch lurking around the house. The police found the witch's house and the young girl. They rescued Chloe from the dark witch. They shot and killed the witch, and as she lay dying, she cursed your grandmother. No one knows what type of curse she spun before she died, but it was something to do with your grandmother and her 10-year-old daughter, Chloe." Carla paused. "At least that's what the letter says." Chloe sat listening. "A curse?" she said. "Yes," Carla said. "But we don't believe in curses, and that story was long ago. I have no idea why the letter was in your folder." Chloe sat, wrapping her hair around her finger. The next night, Carla watched as the door to her bedroom slowly opened. She tried to scream, but no sound came. She couldn't move. She felt paralyzed. Lying in bed, she watched as the dark figure walked toward her. She was horrified as the darkness huddled over her and said, "The blood moon will soon be here." The figure backed away and disappeared into the darkness. The following day, Carla told her husband what she had seen. He laughed and dismissed her sightings as a bad dream. However, Carla knew what she had seen, and she was terrified. Chloe sat listening to her mother. The next night, Carla placed several video recorders throughout the house, one in her bedroom, one in the hall, and one in Chloe's bedroom. If the dark figure came that night, she would record the monster entering her room. She had to know what was happening to her. Why was she seeing this dark entity? At 3 a.m., the door to Carla's room opened. and in walked the dark figure. Carla could feel the evil as it approached her bed. She was unable to move or speak. The creature whispered in a raspy voice, "It's time." She touched Carla's forehead, and all went dark. The next morning, Chloe wasn't at school, and after many attempts to reach her parents, the police were notified. The police made several calls and found that Chloe's parents had not reported to work. They sent a patrol car to investigate. Upon entering the house, they found Chloe's mother and father bludgeoned to death in their beds. The police reported it to be the most gruesome murders they had ever investigated. They searched for Chloe, but the 10-year-old girl was missing. When they searched the house, they found the video recorders. Captain John Roberts viewed the videos on each recorder. He watched as Chloe left her bed and pulled a hatchet from under the mattress. But before leaving her room, she drew a giant skull on her bedroom wall. Under the skull were the words, "Beware of the blood moon." Captain Roberts knew a skull was a sign of death. As Chloe left her bedroom, she turned toward the video camera. It was as if she knew it was there. A hideous smile crept across her face. Captain Roberts said it resembled nothing less than pure evil. Years passed and Chloe was never found or seen again. The police searched in vain for the 10-year-old girl, but found no traces of her. She had disappeared. The young couple sat in the orphanage waiting for the director. Elizabeth entered her office and took a seat behind her desk. Elizabeth was young and more beautiful than anyone the Richardsons had ever seen. "Your skin," Mrs. Richardson said, "so soft-looking and beautiful. You must share your secret with me." Elizabeth glanced down at her hands and said softly, "Oh, it's a terrible curse." She picked up a folder and spoke caringly to the couple. "I've got a very nice young girl here. She's 10, sweet, and very smart. All I can tell you about her family is here in this folder. It seems her family has a curse, but Chloe seems perfectly fine." The Richardsons smiled. "We don't believe in curses. May we meet her?" "Yes, of course," Elizabeth said. A young girl entered the room, and the director rose. She stood erect and said, "This is Chloe. Chloe, this is Mr. and Mrs. Richardson." Chloe smiled. "It's good to meet you," she said. She curled her hair around her finger. 2 hours later, the Richardsons had signed the paperwork and left Elizabeth's office. Chloe stopped outside the office door and spoke softly. "May I tell Miss Elizabeth goodbye?" "Yes, of course," Mrs. Richardson said. Chloe opened the door to Elizabeth's office. She stepped inside and whispered, "Thank you for finding me a new home, Mother. I like these people." "That's good, Chloe," Elizabeth said. "You know you can't stay very long. You must return to your tomb after the blood moon." Chloe nodded and asked, "Why must I go back there? It's so dark and cold in that tomb." "We have no choice, as the Dark Witch demands her sacrifices yearly," Elizabeth said. Elizabeth knew Chloe was an innocent child. However, years ago, she had made a pact with an evil witch, and Chloe was part of that bargain. Elizabeth double-crossed the witch, and the witch cursed both Elizabeth and Chloe before she died. Chloe never saw her 11th birthday. The Dark Witch saw to that. However, the curse she spun would imprison Chloe for eternity. Every year, Chloe would rise from her tomb for 23 days. She would be the hand of death for many, taking their lives, fulfilling the curse the Dark Witch spun on her and her mother. On the night of the blood moon, Chloe kills 2 people, a yearly sacrifice for the Dark Witch. Then Chloe returns to her tomb for another year. Elizabeth would remain beautiful and young, reminding herself each day as she looked at the cost of pride and vanity in her mirror. That was the price she paid for crossing the Dark Witch. Elizabeth would suffer, knowing her 10-year-old daughter would rise from the dead and kill 2 innocent people every year for eternity. Beauty is costly, especially if you cross a wicked witch. I hope you enjoyed this story. After looking in the mirror, I see I could use a little nip and tuck here and there. However, the price I'd have to pay to be handsome would be costly. At my age, the only thing not sagging is the bottom of my feet. But the good news is this: I don't know any witches, so I'll just stay the way I am. I hope you enjoyed this scary and bizarre short story. If you would, please subscribe and give this story a thumbs up. I would appreciate it. As always, thank you for visiting my channel.